Hello, everyone, and welcome to Ful-on, your Fulham-centric football podcast. I'm your host, Ash Woolford. Joining me today for our Newcastle Carling Cup quarter-final preview is AJ. How you doing, mate?
Very good, very good.
Welcome back, obviously. We just obviously sat down and recorded our review of the game at Turf Moor on Saturday, so we're about to talk about this Newcastle one. Mozza, how you doing, mate?
Yeah, keeping on. Thank you.
Yeah, good, good. And Drew, how you doing, mate?
Yeah, back to the land of the living. So yeah, I'm doing well.
It's good to have you on too, mate. We're here to talk about Wednesday night's Carling Cup quarter final away at St James's Park, a game that has frustrated many. The time and kickoff for it, mainly because I think it's like for the third time at Newcastle away in a row. There's no train home for anybody going to the game. It's an absolute nightmare of a ground to get to when there's no trains. So, if you are one of the Fulham fans going up to St James's Park on Wednesday, well done. Hope you enjoy your trip. Hopefully, the boys can put in a performance that makes it worthwhile. Here we are, though. We're sat here, Fulham in another quarter final of the League Cup. It's been a few years now that we've done quite decently year on year in the Carling Cup. It would be nice to get a good result away at Newcastle to get a semi-final. It's going to be a difficult game looking at it. Newcastle, though, have had a bit of a hit and miss period at the moment. They'll be reeling after losing the Tyne-Wear derby on Sunday, especially in the manner in which they lost it. So hopefully, Fulham can go there with a bit of joy and get a result. AJ, we know that we are missing three players for sure for the game on Wednesday night that we saw play on Saturday with the AFCON boys off and gone. Uh, I don't imagine there's going to be too much rotation in this one, other than those three. Mainly because I know Marco likes to play certain players in the cup. I think he secretly wants to do something in this cup, and it's now got to the point where it's crunch time. We can't really afford to drop many first teamers. What are you expecting to see on Wednesday night?
One guaranteed rotation outside of the three Nigerians I expect to see is Lecomte in for Leno, just because he's done well so far at this up to this stage of the cup, and I think he'll be treated to being able to continue his run of form in the cup. We're obviously likely to see Cuenca come in for Bassi. That's a no-brainer. I also think under the circumstances, we're probably going to end up seeing Castagna at left back, just because he's slightly more defensive than an unfit Robinson would be. A fit Robinson, on the other hand, would be like cream of the crop, arguably best defender in the league, but best left back defensively in the league. But in the circumstances that he's just played a couple of days ago and that we're going into a midweek fixture, I think he'll probably be rested. And then I unfortunately see the return of the double pivot purely because of how much the Newcastle midfield terrifies us, and whether or not they put their foot on the ball and control the tempo of the game is probably a reason we'll probably see Lukic and Berge return next to each other, because I don't see the likes of someone like Kearney who can control the midfield being played. And I think, considering the circumstances of this game, there's way too much to lose to risk putting King and ESR next to each other, as much as I'd love to see it.
Yeah, we spoke about it briefly, obviously, the other day about King and ESR maybe getting some time together. I don't think this is the sort of game you're going to see it, for sure, because there's too much riding on it. I think when you look at, uh, you know, we're definitely probably getting up having Kevin play instead of Chukwueze on the left. I'd imagine, because he's probably our only natural player who can play on that side of the pitch. I don't know what Marco Silva's going to do because he can't pick Alex Iwobi no matter what he wants. He can't pick him, and you know he's probably having some grief counselling as we speak to deal with that fact. Um, I think it's going to be a big one on Rail this game. We'll see what happens with that. Drew, Newcastle away is always a tough game to go to. It's always a difficult one. We sort of had a bit of a, I wouldn't even say tight one. It was a bit of a frustrating game there in the league earlier on in the season. What are you expecting from us on Wednesday night? What do you want? What do you want to see if we lose? Would you like to see us lose with a bit of fight, or is it one of those that we've got nothing to lose? We just go for it and hope that we can play our way into winning a quarterfinal in the cup.
Well, obviously, I mean, if we lose, you want to go down fighting. You don't want to just get rolled over. I mean, as bad as we were in the opening part of the game up there when we lost in the league recently, it wasn't beyond the realms of possibility that, well, we did get back into it, but it was only towards the end that we gave it away. Newcastle will give you chances. They're not a team that's just going to simply run over us for 90 minutes, because they haven't done in all the games I've seen them play recently. So we will get our chances. The issue is going to be is whether we're going to be able to take those chances. Newcastle, they've not been great recently, and obviously they're coming off the real nightmare of the Sunderland defeat, where they lost to an own goal. So they'll be hurting. It will be interesting to see, because they'll be looking at us and thinking this is a game that they should win, and they should be able to progress quite relatively easily in the cup. They're going to be favourites. So, I mean, to be fair to Silva, you've got to give him his due. He's never gone anywhere just to defend. So I think that we'll go there to win. But the key is, for me, like I said, having watched quite a few Newcastle Fulham games recently, is making sure that we are not all lost at sea, because quite frankly, we could have been 2 or 3 down at St James's Park earlier this season before it got to about 20 minutes. We've got to keep them close, because they will give us chances. If they do, if that happens, as it has done in the last few games, then when we are in the ascendancy, we've got to score. We have to score. Whether we will or not is debatable, but I expect Silva to go up there and try and win, because like I said, whatever you say about Silva, he always does.
Yeah, no, I think I agree. I'm not expecting anything negative. It was more for me the case of, we know the problems that Marco has with the squad at the moment. We know that his concerns about certain positions and cover and stuff like that, as much as some of that is self-inflicted. And we've discussed that loads. We're not going to discuss that now. It is what it is. We have to be positive going into the game. We have to show a positive attitude going into the game. What will be good, I think, is that for the first time in a very long time, we have a very difficult decision to make in terms of who's going to play in that attacking midfielding role. And it's one of those ones where that whoever plays on Wednesday night, whether that is, if that is ESR or if that is Josh King, they're going to have to be exceptionally positive, trying to carry the ball and trying to move it forward. We know that Rail's got some mobility issues at the moment. We'll say mobility issues. The man can't train. He can barely play football, but we're managing his minutes apparently. So that is what that is. There has been some good news for us going into this game. Obviously, Jedi playing 90 minutes most of the game, not 90 minutes on Saturday, will help, because it'll be covered there. I agree with AJ though. I think we're probably likely to see Castagna play at left back rather than Jedi, because it'd be a tough ask to ask him to play games like that 2 games in a row away from home in difficult locations. We got away with one on Saturday because I thought the Burnley crowd were really negative going into that game, and they're usually right up for it. We know what it's like going to St James's Park though. Mozza, Newcastle are one of those grounds, right, where when their fans properly get behind them, they really get a head of steam. They really pick it up. We're gonna have to do an awful lot to make sure that we can, keep the crowd down. We can sort of just, if anything, we need to frustrate them for the first sort of 15, 20 minutes. Can you see us being able to do that? Considering the last couple of times we've been to St James's Park, they've been on it pretty much from the beginning, and we've struggled to have to build back into the game.
For the first 15, 20 minutes, certainly, yeah, I can see Fulham fans doing that. All depending what happens from that time onwards. Heads can drop. I mean, we sometimes see it at Craven Cottage, but I think it depends how frustrated we are with like current forms or strange choices from the manager. I'm ashamed to say I've actually never been to St James's Park. I do plan on flying up there with BA, hopefully with Drew, sometime in the future.
Unless we'll be part of a hijacking, mate.
But it's one of those grounds I've always wanted to go to. But so yeah, and I'm fully aware of the reputation of how important football is to Newcastle and the fans and the community and the people, the city up there. Oh God, that movie Goal. Do you remember that? Probably not one Sunderland fan will have probably ever watched it, but yeah, we were in that movie as well, weren't we? I know I'm digressing here. I remember them filming at Craven Cottage. Brian McBride had a cameo.
Yeah.
I'm on a football podcast about whether we're going to beat Newcastle in the cup. Hang on, let me get back to reality. Yeah, I think the Fulham fans can bring it, but are we going to be much of a contest for the home Newcastle fans? I mean, look, I think they'll give it a go. I certainly would on a Wednesday night. But what you've just said about there being no trains back or anything, I mean, bless the cotton socks of our lot going up there. It's easy for me to say sitting here in this chair, but I have a strangely optimistic feeling about it, and I think it is because what you said earlier about possibly not really having anything to lose. I think it will be interesting to see how we perform without our boys who are off to AFCON. And although our squad is obviously thinned out, I think it's a no-brainer to have ESR start just based on current form from the last couple of performances we've seen. I really fancy Harrison Reed getting in the mix as well. And you know what? I'm going to shock you all. I don't know about Tom Kearney starting, but I wouldn't be mad if he did start. I think I'd rather have Reed and Kearney starting over Berger and Lukic, to be honest, in the midfield. Just to change it up, why not? Like Kowenka, I want to see. I really want him to play a misser as well in defence. Like, why not? Why not?
Because he's a conventional left back, mate, and he's under 20, so that's not going to happen.
Yeah, stranger things have happened. All right, then fuck it. Let's have Traore play 90 minutes up front on his own. Like, come on, let's just see what happens. Let's roll the
Now
dice.
you're thinking like Marco Silva, Mozza. Now you're thinking like Marco Silva, right? But I think,
I'll stop there.
You make a good. You make a load of good points. I think that one of the things for me going into this game is there's nothing to lose, right? I think that losing to Newcastle away in a quarterfinal of a cup competition is not the end of the world. Beating Newcastle away would be a massive boost, even though we've had sort of up and down couple of sets of weeks. There's been an awful lot of players that are on the periphery of the squad that will come in for this game. We know they will naturally. We know Kowenka coming in, a player that we all admire, we all really like. We know that he's going to have to settle in because he's going to be playing on Monday night against Forest too, because he's the only natural left-sided centre-back we have. What interests me is the players that come in to replace Iwobi and Chukwueze. I think Kevin will likely start this game because he's the only natural left-sided winger we have, even though he will want to be on either side. it's who plays in that other position. I think AJ was correct in stating that we're probably going to see the return of the double pivot, which scares me because I don't ever want to see it. But it probably is the most sensible one if we're going to try to control a game like this. That we'll talk about it now, as we always do when we talk about players to watch on both teams. Newcastle have got a strong central midfield. They have had Eddie Howe loves having a strong centre midfield. The problem with them this year is they've been really poor in transition, and they've let in some silly goals. The goal that they conceded on Sunday, the own goal, yes, it was unlucky, but it was not that surprising. Newcastle fans won't be surprised that they conceded it, you know. And one advantage for Fulham is there's no Dan Burn, who has been brilliant. He broken a rib, injured his lung, so he's not going to be playing in this game. Having Shah play instead. Now, I like Shah. I think he's a good defender. But when we beat Newcastle at Craven Cottage last year, it was because he was playing, and we sort of attacked him, and we used him as a focal point to attack, to make as a weak point in that defence, and it really worked for us. So we'll see how that works for us going forward. I think ultimately we don't have anything to lose. As long as we don't get embarrassed, we have nothing to lose in this game, and it's great to go for it. And it's not very often as Fulham fans we get to say that. We've got nothing to lose. We argued a few rounds ago that it wouldn't be the end of the world if we were out of the League Cup altogether early on. So we had a couple of days break in between resting players. But we've worked our way into this spot. We haven't been convincing in the 2 rounds previously. We were lucky at Wickham. We were all there. We were lucky at Wickham. And we were poor at home in the round before. So it's one of those ones where you have to watch it. Now, lads, let's finish this one as we always do. Players to watch from both teams, scoreline predictions. Let's see what we get. Mozza, I'm going to start with you, mate. Can I get a player to watch from both teams and a scoreline prediction, please?
Yeah, I'm going to be really obvious, but I'm going to say Harvey Barnes from Newcastle. I think when we last played them in the league, did he score against us? I know we lost the game. AJ's going to tell me probably, and also another interesting fact he found out recently about him. But we'll leave that there. Or was it Dan Burn? One of the two. My head's all over the place tonight. It's just so exciting. To think what could happen in this beautiful game. Sorry, mate. Did you say something? Or is it just my feedback?
Just your feedback, mate. You crack on.
Oh, I love the sound of my own voice. Right. I'm going to stick with Harvey Barnes. I fancy our chances. I'm going to be positive. I'm going to say 1-0 Fulham. Our player to watch. If there's a God, and if he plays, it will be Jonah. And I don't really know what alternative to say, because I feel like he's not going to get a sniff, is he? But I'm going to stick to my guns.
No, we'll see. It could be the exact type of game that Marco decides to throw him in for. AJ, how about yourself, mate? Player to watch from both teams and a scoreline prediction, please.
Player to watch for Fulham is going to be whoever takes Iwobi's position. So I'm going to hazard a guess that that's Lukic and say that my money for a player to watch is Live Laugh Lukic. As for Newcastle, I think it's Jacob Murphy. He seems to have this unique act of performing against us and not playing against bigger sides, and then coming in against us and showing exactly why he had this ridiculous link-up play with Isak when he was there. So, yeah, it's got to be Jacob Murphy for me. As for a scoreline prediction, I think it's 2-2 and it goes to penalties. Which way it goes at penalties at that stage, I don't know.
That is a brave Desmond to call, but we'll see if we can get there. Drew, how about yourself, mate? Players to watch from both teams and the scoreline prediction.
Well, player to watch from both sides. I mean, that's difficult, isn't it? Because I'm not entirely sure who we're gonna start. ESR has been really, really good for us. I know Leno and Harry were cream of the crop against Burnley, but ESR is on a bit of a hot streak at the moment, and I'd like to see that continue for him because he deserves it. Because it's not been easy, his start to his career at the Cottage. Mozza, like the thief in the night he is, he stole my choice. So I suppose the other obvious alternative for Newcastle is Bruno, because as he goes, so goes the team. I mean, he's a Rolls Royce of a midfielder. And even if he's not in the game all the way through, he's got the class to impact it at some point, as he did in the league fixture earlier in the season when he popped up with the winner. So yeah, I mean, if they're going to win, Bruno is really going to have to dig it out, because quite a lot of the others, they just weren't at it against Sunderland. As for the score prediction, I want to pick Fulham, but I just think this is where our run in the Carabao Cup comes to an end, I'm afraid. I don't think it will. I don't think it'll go to penalties, but I don't think it's going to be high scoring either. So there'll be the odd goal in it.
Yeah, I think that's a fair shout. I think for me, Bruno probably would have been my shout for Newcastle. Without, if you guys have taken him as you have, probably say Tonali. I don't imagine he'll probably start on Wednesday night. He had a difficult game on Sunday at the Stadium of Light. But if he comes on, if for whatever reason Newcastle need that bit of step up in pace, he can definitely produce that. On the basis of the game on Sunday, you know, Vortmaid's probably going to be a player to watch, considering the own goal he scored on Sunday. You know, he'll probably be up for making up for it. For us, I think it's whoever plays centre backs for us is going to be the most important. I imagine for this game, it's going to be Cuenca and Diop. Both have come in and been great in the games they've played in. You know, you look at both of the cup games we played so far in the cup, you know, or the last two rounds especially. They've been two players who have not disappointed. They've played well. It's just the players in front of them that have been a bit, you know, unsteady. And if they can be steady and we can be defensively strong, then, you know, I don't see why we can't nick a 1-0 win. I don't see why we can't, you know, be in the game at least. And if it goes to penalties, like AJ suggests, I'd much rather it be because the game finishes 0-0 than finishes 2-2. But who knows, really? It's one of those ones where, as we say, it's a bit of a free hit because, you know, none of us really expect to go that far in the Carabao. But if we can get a semi-final, who knows? You know, who knows? We'll see what happens, lads. Thank you very much for joining me for this one. Wednesday night, obviously, tonight. This episode's out on Wednesday morning, so it will be out the games tonight. Hopefully, Fulham can get a result away at St James's Park, and we can have a cup semi-final to look forward to. I will see you all later on in the week when we sit down to record our preview for the game on Monday night against Forest. Nothing more to say really. Then enjoy the rest of your week and come on, you whites.